I didn't plan to stay late that night. The office was half empty, the hum of the lights louder than my thoughts. She was still there, the kind of stillness that draws attention, not because it's loud, but because it refuses to be ignored. Ms. Vale, my boss, mid-40s, deliberate in everything she did. Her voice always calm, measured, like she knew time bent for her, not the other way around. She stood by the window when I walked back from the copier, city lights flickering against the glass. Her reflection looked softer than she ever let herself appear in daylight. That's when she turned, caught me looking. "Still here?" she asked. "Finishing the report," I said, though I'd finished it 10 minutes ago. She nodded once, almost approving, and went back to her screen. The silence after that wasn't uncomfortable. It was worse. It meant something. I tried to type, but the words on my monitor blurred. Every keystroke felt too loud. She sat a few desks away, glasses slipping slightly as she leaned over her laptop, a strand of hair falling across her cheek. I wanted to say something, anything, just to hear my voice against hers. Instead, she spoke first. "You can go home if you're tired." Her tone was professional, but her eyes lingered too long when I looked up. "I don't mind staying." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, not quite not. "You don't have to prove anything, you know?" I shrugged, pretending not to care, though my heart wasn't pretending. "It's not about proving anything. I just like the quiet." That made her pause. She studied me like I'd said something that didn't fit the version of me she kept in her head. "Most people don't," she said softly. "Maybe most people don't get to share it." The words left me before I knew what they meant. She blinked once, as if deciding whether to ignore them or not. She didn't. She stood, walked past my desk, stopped beside me. The faint scent of her perfume, something floral, clean, filled the air. She leaned slightly, enough to reach for the stapler near my elbow, though there was another one on her desk. Our hands brushed, just skin, just a second. But I swear I felt her hand tighten, like she'd noticed too. "Thank you," she murmured. "Anytime," I said, but my voice caught halfway out. She didn't look at me right away. When she did, her gaze was steady, unreadable, but there was something under it. A flicker, a question she wouldn't ask. Couldn't look away. For a moment, the office didn't exist. The sound of traffic faded. Just her, standing too close, and the pulse in my neck that I hoped she couldn't see. Then her phone buzzed. She stepped back, almost startled, the spell breaking with the sound. She checked the screen, sighed. "That's my driver, right?" I said. My voice sounded too normal for how the air still felt charged between us. She hesitated, glancing toward the elevator, then back at me. "You really don't have to stay so late." "I know," I said, "but maybe I will." Her eyes lingered. Not the look of a boss giving instructions, but of someone who almost said something else. Then she turned, walked away, heels tapping down the hall, fading one by one. When the elevator doors closed behind her, the office felt suddenly smaller. The cursor blinked on my screen, waiting. And for some reason, I couldn't make myself leave. The next morning, she was already at her desk when I walked in. Same gray suit, same calm voice greeting the room. But something in her tone brushed a little too close to what happened the night before. I nodded to her, tried to act like nothing had shifted, but it had. The air between us wasn't quite neutral anymore. It hummed, quietly under the surface. By noon, she asked me to stay behind for a project review. Everyone else filtered out, laughing about lunch plans. The door clicked shut. Just us again. "Did you finish the Q3 layout?" she asked, her eyes on the monitor. "Almost. Just refining the data sections." She leaned closer to look, her hand bracing on the back of my chair. Her perfume again. Faint, clean, warm. I forgot how to breathe for a second. "You work harder than you should," she said. "You don't have to prove yourself all the time." The same words as last night, but softer now. Not about work. "My last job," I hesitated. "Let's just say I got used to being invisible. So now I try harder." She didn't move away. "Invisible," Yeah. Did what I was told. Didn't matter if I did it well. Her gaze flicked toward me. People notice more than you think. Her hand was still on the chair. I could feel her warmth through the fabric. She realized it too and pulled back slowly, almost reluctantly. For a second, she looked younger, not in appearance but in how uncertain she seemed. Vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. "Do you ever stop working?" I asked, forcing a smile. She almost laughed. "Not really. Keeps me from thinking too much." "About?" She tilted her head, considering. "About what I've given up for it." The sentence hung there, heavier than either of us wanted. I wanted to ask what she meant, but her eyes said not to. I knew bits of her story. Divorced 5 years ago. No kids. The kind of woman who always looked composed but somehow made loneliness look elegant. Maybe that's what pulled me in, the way she carried it without letting it crush her. We went over the report, or tried to. Her hand brushed mine once when we both reached for the same pen. Neither of us pulled away right away. "Sorry," I said, too quickly. "It's fine," she murmured. But her voice was barely above a whisper. I caught her looking at me a moment later. Not like a boss, like a woman remembering what it was like to be looked at that way. The silence stretched. She stood abruptly, smoothing her jacket. "Let's finish this tomorrow." "Sure," I said, even though we both knew there wasn't anything left to finish. At the door, she hesitated. Her hand rested on the frame, fingers tightening for a heartbeat. Then she turned, gave me a look I couldn't quite read, half warning, half confession. "Don't stay too late tonight," she said. Her voice was steady. Her eyes weren't. When she left, I noticed her coffee mug still on the desk. Half full, still warm. I didn't touch it. I just stood there, staring at the faint lipstick mark on the rim, knowing I'd remember the color. Fridays were supposed to be easy. Fewer meetings, looser hours, laughter echoing down the hallways. But not that one. That Friday, every sound in the office seemed to scrape against the quiet between us. Ms. Vale stood by my desk, arms crossed, reviewing a printout. "You've improved the layout," she said. "Cleaner. More confident." I nodded, pretending to focus on her words and not the way her blouse brushed against the edge of my table when she leaned closer. "You make it easy to want to get things right." Her eyes lifted to mine. A look, sharp enough to notice everything, soft enough to make me forget the rest. "Careful," she said, voice low. "Flattery can sound like something else." "Maybe I don't mind that," I said before I could stop myself. She froze, just for a second. Then she smiled, the kind that hides more than it shows. Before she could answer, the door opened. "Hey, Ms. Vale." It was Jenna from HR waving a file. "Need your signature." "Oh, sorry." We stepped apart instinctively, like kids caught doing something they shouldn't. Nothing had happened, but it felt like it had. "All good," Ms. Vale said, professional again in an instant. "Just reviewing reports." Jenna smiled, oblivious. "Great. Don't work him too hard, boss." The door clicked shut. The silence after was heavier than any sound. Her hand was still on the table, fingers curled, knuckles pale. I wanted to reach across, straighten them, just touch her skin for a second. Instead, I cleared my throat. "Guess we should be more careful." She didn't move. "Guess so." The clock ticked. A printer hummed somewhere down the hall. "About what you said earlier," she started, then stopped. I waited. She exhaled, barely shaking her head. "Never mind. It's not important." But it always was. Later that evening, most of the lights were off. She was still there, sitting on the edge of her desk, shoes off, papers scattered. I lingered by the door, unsure why I hadn't left yet. "You really don't have to keep doing this," she said without looking up. "Doing what?" "Staying when everyone else goes home. Maybe I just like the quiet." She smiled faintly, remembering. "That line again." She stood, walked toward me slowly. "It's late," she said. "I know." Her gaze lingered, caught between warning and invitation. She reached for a folder on the shelf beside me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine. I could feel her breath near my neck. A pause stretched, the kind that swallows reason. Her hand trembled slightly as she set the folder down. "We shouldn't," she whispered. "I know." But neither of us moved. Her fingers lifted, just enough to touch my sleeve. The contact was nothing and everything at once. The air tightened, heartbeat against heartbeat. A vibration shattered the stillness. Her phone, lighting up on the desk. She stepped back fast, as if burned. She turned away, trying to steady herself. "Tomorrow," she said, voice unsteady. I nodded, even though she didn't see it. At the door, she hesitated again, half turned toward me. "Good night," she said. It sounded like an apology. When she left, the air she disturbed still lingered, warm, charged, unfinished. Rain hammered the city that night, streaking the office windows in long silver lines. Everyone else had left hours ago. Only one light remained, hers. I told myself I was staying to finish a report. Truth was, I wanted to see if she'd still be there. She was, standing by the window, arms folded, lost somewhere far beyond the glass. The faint reflection of lightning lit her face, and for the first time, she didn't look composed. She looked tired. When she noticed me, she didn't act surprised. Just said quietly, "You don't listen very well." Never claimed I did. She turned back to the city. "You shouldn't be here. Then tell me to go." She didn't. The air thickened with the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. I took a few steps closer, stopping beside her. The scent of rain clung to her clothes, mixed with perfume and something warm, human. "People are starting to notice," she said softly. "Notice what? That you stay late. That I don't tell you not to." I swallowed. "Does it bother you?" She hesitated, then turned to face me. Her eyes were darker than usual, the kind that hold too much at once. "Reason, want, regret." "It should," she said. Her voice trembled on the word should. I stepped closer, close enough to see the small details I tried not to memorize. The faint line at the corner of her mouth, the way her hair curled slightly from the humidity. "You don't have to pretend this doesn't mean anything," I said. She let out a slow breath. "You're too young to understand what that costs." "Then explain it to me." She shook her head, almost laughing. But it wasn't amusement. It was surrender. "You think this is simple? That I can just—" She stopped, words slipping away. I lifted a hand without thinking, brushed a strand of hair from her face. My fingers barely grazed her skin, but it was enough to make her eyes close. "Don't," she whispered. I froze, hands still suspended. Then she opened her eyes, and for a moment all the resistance fell away. Her hand came up, rested lightly against my chest. Not pushing me back, not pulling me closer. Just there. I could feel her pulse through her fingertips. "This can't happen," she said, almost to herself. "Then why are we both still standing here?" She didn't answer. A flash of lightning lit the room, followed by thunder that shook the windows. She flinched slightly, and in that instant, instinct took over. I stepped forward. She didn't move, and suddenly she was against me, breath warm against my throat. Neither of us spoke. The rain, the thunder, the hum of fluorescent lights. Everything blurred into a single, breathless second that felt like falling. Her lips parted, just barely. My hand moved to her jaw, thumb tracing the edge of her cheek. "Tell me to stop," I murmured. Her voice was almost lost in the storm. "I can't." And just as the space between us vanished, a knock on the door. Sharp, jarring. We broke apart, hearts racing, the moment torn clean in two. "Ms. Vale?" a voice called. "The finance team's looking for that file." She stepped back fast, straightened her blouse, smoothed her hair. "Coming?" she called, her tone steady again, except for the tremor only I could hear. The door shut again. We stood in silence, breath still shallow, eyes locked. She looked at me for a long second. Then softly, almost breaking, "This has to stop." But neither of us moved. The following Monday, she avoided me. No morning greeting, no quick glance when I passed her office. Just silence, deliberate, polished, professional. I should have expected it after that night, after how close we came. But the distance still hit harder than it should have. By noon, I'd convinced myself to let it go. She'd made her choice. I'd respect it. That resolve lasted until I overheard my name. It came from the break room, low voices, muffled through the half-closed door. "You've noticed, right?" someone said. "He's always with her. It's starting to look—" I pushed the door open before I heard the rest. 2 co-workers looked up, startled. "Oh, hey." One of them stammered. "Didn't see you there." "Yeah," I said evenly. "Maybe next time don't talk about people you do see." I left before I said something worse. Back at my desk, I saw her door half open, light spilling out across the hall. She must have heard too. The rumor had found its way to both of us. An hour later, she called me in. "Close the door," she said quietly. I did. She looked exhausted. Not just tired, but worn down from holding herself together. "They're starting to talk," she said. "I know." Her hands were on the desk, fingers twisting a pen until the plastic cracked. "This could cost me my position." "It's not." I stopped. The truth felt heavier than any defense. "It's not fair." "Fair doesn't matter here." I took a step closer. "So what happens now? You pretend none of it meant anything?" She looked up sharply. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Don't tell the truth." She stood, pushing the chair back. "You think you understand what this is?" I met her gaze. "Ido." "You just don't want to admit it." Her breath hitched, not loud, but enough. The kind of sound you only make when something strikes too close. "I made a mistake," she said finally, voice breaking around the word mistake. "Then why do you keep looking at me like that?" She flinched, like I'd touched her without permission. "Because I can't seem to stop." The confession landed between us like a match to dry paper. She exhaled, eyes closing. "I should have stopped this before it started." I moved closer before she could retreat. "You still can. Just tell me to walk away." She opened her eyes, glassy, conflicted. "I don't want to." Lightning again, but this time from inside. She took a step forward, closing the distance, then froze, hands trembling slightly, breath uneven. "You think this is easy for me?" she whispered. "No," I said. "That's why it means something." For a second, I thought she might actually reach for me. Her hand lifted, hovered near my chest, then fell away. The tension snapped like a wire pulled too tight. "I'm moving you to another department," she said suddenly. Her voice was calm, but her pulse wasn't. "What?" "It's the only way to stop this before we destroy each other." She walked past me, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine, her perfume lingering like a memory. At the door, she paused, not turning around. "This isn't the end," she said softly. "But it has to be the pause." And then she was gone. I stood there, caught between fury and longing, and for the first time, realized how much power she had to break me. It was after hours again. Of course it was. The city hummed outside, traffic lights bleeding red and gold across the glass. I shouldn't have been there. She shouldn't have let me in. But neither of us were good at should anymore. She stood behind her desk, pretending to organize papers that didn't need organizing. I stood in the doorway, pretending I hadn't come to say what I already knew. "You transferred me," I said finally. She didn't look up. "It was the right thing to do." "Then why does it feel wrong?" She stopped moving. The air between us thickened, alive again with everything we hadn't said. "Because it is wrong," she whispered. I crossed the room. She didn't step back. "You keep saying that, but you don't believe it." Her hand froze mid-motion. I reached out, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and took the paper from her fingers. Our skin touched. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Tell me this doesn't mean anything," I said. She looked at me then, really looked, eyes tired, pupils wide, lips parting like she wanted to argue but couldn't. "You're too young to ruin your life over a feeling," she said. "Then stop making me feel it." Her mouth trembled, caught between anger and surrender. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make me want what I can't have." The confession hit hard enough to silence both of us. She turned away, pressing her palms flat on the desk. You think this is simple? You go home, you start over. I'm the one they'll whisper about. The one who should have known better. I stepped closer, until her back was almost against me. My voice dropped. You think I care what they whisper? Her shoulders rose, then fell, a shaky breath slipping out. You should. Lightning flickered outside, just enough to paint her in silver. I reached up, brushed my fingers through a loose strand of her hair. She didn't move. Tell me to leave, I said again, quieter this time. She turned, slowly, until she was facing me. Our faces were inches apart. I could feel her breath. Fast, uneven, warm. Her hand lifted, rested lightly against my chest. You don't make this easy, she said. Neither do you. Her laugh was a whisper, sad and soft. If we do this, there's no going back. I don't want to go back. For a heartbeat, nothing existed except the pulse between us. Steady, shared, real. She leaned in, eyes flicking between my mouth and my eyes, torn. Then, instead of closing the distance, she pressed her forehead against mine. It was the gentlest refusal I'd ever felt, and the most honest. Her voice came out low. Maybe loving someone means not crossing the line that breaks them. I swallowed, nodded once, though it hurt to do it. Then I guess we already did. She smiled, barely. Maybe we just stopped in time. When I stepped back, her hand lingered in the air, as if she wanted to hold on but knew better. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full of everything we'd said without words. Weeks passed. Enough time for things to settle, at least on the surface. I moved to the new department, a few floors down. Different view, different desk, same thoughts. We didn't talk for a while. She kept her distance, and I pretended not to notice when her name showed up on internal emails or when her footsteps paused outside my door. The office had a rhythm again, but I couldn't unhear the quiet between us. One night, long after everyone had gone, I found her waiting in the lobby. She looked smaller without the office around her. Not fragile, just human. You left your presentation notes, she said, holding the folder out. I think you just needed an excuse to see me, I said, half smiling. That earned the smallest laugh. Maybe I did. The rain had started again. It always seemed to when we didn't know what to say. We stepped outside together, under the narrow cover of the awning. For a moment we just listened. The city lights shimmered in the puddles. The smell of rain mixed with her perfume. That same clean, warm scent that had somehow become home. I wanted to say, she began, then stopped. You deserved better than how I handled things. You handled them the only way you knew how, I said. Her eyes softened. You make excuses for me too easily. I just understand you, I said quietly. Maybe that's worse. She looked at me then. Really looked the way she did that first night when she'd caught me staring and didn't look away. You've grown, she said. You were just a kid when I hired you. I smiled faintly. I stopped being one the day you made me care. She exhaled, the kind of breath that carries months of words she never said. Then she reached out, hesitant, brushing her fingertips against mine. It wasn't dramatic. No storm, no trembling declarations. Just two people finally letting the silence be honest. Her hand found mine fully this time. Fingers intertwining, warm, steady. You know this can't be simple, she said. Nothing worth it ever is. She leaned in then, not for a kiss, but close enough that her forehead rested against my cheek. A quiet kind of surrender. I kept trying to stop feeling this, she murmured. Turns out, I just needed to stop fighting it. I squeezed her hand gently. Then don't. We stood like that, the rain falling in soft sheets around us, the world shrinking to the warmth of her hand in mine. No more hiding. No more pretending it didn't matter. Just two people, a little bruised by what they'd resisted, finally finding stillness in what they couldn't avoid. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Not from tears, but from something lighter, something new. Walk me home, she asked. Always. We stepped into the rain together, the city lights blurring around us, our shoulders brushing with every step. No promises, no explanations, just a quiet, real beginning. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?